Virginity has been the obsession of men for thousands of years. Female virginity was of utmost importance in the Middle Ages. If a bride went to her marriage bed having already engaged in illicit intercourse with anyone but her husband, she would be considered as a finished woman and would likely be treated as an outcast by her family and friends. It has driven the best people like the virgin warrior Joan of Arc to fight for just cause. Virginity has also lured the worst people, such as the sadistic Countess Elizabeth Bathory, to cause the murder of virgin maidens in order to bathe in their blood, or so the history books tell us. But why? What exactly is so alluring about those who cherish virginity? Is it about virtue or is it about something else? This is History Rediscovered. To support, please subscribe. In this episode, we discuss the shocking history of virgin tests and faking virginity in the ancient world. Ancient beliefs about virginity. Throughout history and even in many cultures today, a bride was expected to go to her wedding bed as a virgin. It was believed that once she had engaged in intercourse with a man, she automatically became his property. It seems outdated now, but in the Middle Ages this view was widely accepted. A woman's life was defined by men until her wedding day. A young woman was the property of her father, hence the tradition of fathers walking their daughters down the aisle to give her away. Upon her marriage to a man, she automatically became his to command. Therefore, when a new bride was discovered to have already engaged in intercourse with another man before her marriage, it caused a huge legal headache. With the rise of agriculture some 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, depending on the region, it is believed the concept of giving importance to virginity arose due to a father's need to commoditize his daughters for the continuation of an agricultural society. This was known as the paternity/property hypothesis, which placed virgin women as material property. Their purpose was to become pregnant, raise children, and make sure the paternal family line continued. By creating the concept of virginity, a father could assure the family of the groom that there were no children from other males. Some of the earliest accounts about virginity come from Egypt, Greece, Rome, and early Christianity. From these sources, it is clear to see the cultural development into what it is currently. Virginity did not carry universal definitions. Often, the concept of virginity was synonymous with chastity. However, chastity and virginity could have meant two different things in pre-Christian societies. In some instances, celibacy was not essential for marriage. Famed Greek historian Herodotus, 450 BC, mentioned the virgin testing with the Amazons of Scythia. According to historical accounts, whose accuracy have not been verified, Scythian Amazon girls were not considered women until they had killed a man in battle. Only then they could be regarded as pure and ready for marriage, and that if no man was killed, the girl would remain a virgin. In this sense, virginity meant the purity of value as opposed to having an intact hymen. In fact, virginity in the ancient world might have referred to whether a woman was married or single. In another example, Herodotus depicted another virginity test in the festival of Abaya, modern Tunisia, involving several chariots driving young maidens divided into two groups armed with sticks and stones. These women would fight to the death. Those who died were considered non-virgins, and those who survived would be virgins and ready for marriage. However, other Greek accounts would give different perspectives to the definition of virginity. According to Hannah Blank, it was common for a father to murder his daughter if she was caught losing her virginity before marriage. In ancient Greece, a daughter's role was her worth in marriage. Marriage was a legally binding contract between two families to gain power, land, reputation, and peace. The total value of a woman depended on her virginity. Different tricks were used during virginity testing. Some women that had lost their virginity went as far as imploring virginity restoration techniques so that they wouldn't be perceived in a bad light. For this reason, fumigation was a common treatment that was used to repair broken hymen during the Middle Ages. It was a mixture of foul-smelling herbal substances that were heated. Thereafter, the steam from it was used to repair the ruptured hymen. Inspecting women. Some women may not have wished to participate in the virginity testing process, but merely did it as an obligation. For many, participation was done in a bid to prove their purity to their parents and the community at large. Ancient physicians used instruments such as the speculum, a duck-billed widening contraption, in order to inspect a woman's gynecological health. However, as Judeo-Christian beliefs became more prevalent, the fear of ruining the hymen by such an instrument became a significant worry. Due to the fear of being seen as a sexual deviant, many gynecologists devised alternative methods for examining the sexual organs by inserting their fingers into the rectum of a woman rather than the vagina in order to check the uterus and ovaries. This method was considered more clinical and safer in preserving the hymen. The midwives were charged with the responsibility of doing this. However, the practice of virginity testing wasn't entirely flawless, as it came with few exceptions. While some women were born without hymens, others had ruptured theirs during strenuous activities. In other cases, the midwives covered for women that were not virgins and faked their findings in order to protect their fellow women from humiliation. The Roma virginity test. The Spanish Roma gypsy people believed in a virginity test called gitanos. This was the belief that a grape-like gland existed in the vagina and that it contained a yellowish liquid called the uva or juice. When this gland was pressed, the fluid was expelled, resulting in the end of a woman's virginity. This process was called the loss of honra, the honor. This test was performed only in the ceremonial declaration of a bride. Members of both sides of the family would come to watch the first act of copulation in order to see both blood and honra stains on the sheets. This act was considered an occasion for witness, pride, and celebration. Another aspect towards virginity slowly took shape among early Christianity. The Christian virgin martyr legends spoke of chaste women waging wars against demons in order to protect their pact with God. However, a dangerous belief slowly developed from these legends that the strength of a Christian virgin woman could be strong enough to defeat sexually transmitted diseases. This belief, unfortunately, would cause some of the worst crimes of sexual abuse prominent to this day. Virginity during the Middle Ages. During the 1200s, the De Secretis Mulierum, the Woman's Secrets, was a manual designed to identify a woman's chastity through her demeanor. It was written for physicians to rely on physical signs that would not involve touching the vagina. In the De Secretis Mulierum, it stated, shame, modesty, fear, a faultless gait and speech, casting eyes down before men. The urine of virgins is clear and lucid, sometimes white, sometimes sparkling. However, the notion of clear urine still seemed to be the main factor in both the Spanish Roma gypsies as well as many other European cultures of the Middle Ages. By 1625, gynecologists became more prevalent and even earned the title of men midwives. Though the examination of women's genitalia was starting to become more frequent, it was still considered to be a disrespectable act. In 1810, France, prostitution was legalized and regulated. The new laws required that each registering prostitute needed a speculum exam to check for venereal diseases. Student doctors from all regions of Europe as well as the United States flooded Paris for the chance to study the medical definitions of what a prostitute's vagina looked like via the speculum vaginal examination technique. In response to this, the need for virgin tests might have been due to the mandatory genital examinations performed by registering French prostitutes. Medical tests for virginity. By the late 19th century, the speculum became known as a violating tool encouraging an unwanted intrusion into the vagina. Physicians feared that further use of the speculum would awaken a sexual appetite resulting in nymphomania or even hysteria. Because of this fear, alternative methods for medical virgin testing became necessary to maintain the honor of women, especially virgins. The virginity cure. By the late 1800s, the only known treatment for syphilis and other sexually transmitted infections was to inject heated mercury into the diseased urethra to eradicate the infection. Those undergoing such procedures experienced great pain and humiliation during the process. However, there was also the spreading myth of the virgin cure, which said that having sex with a virgin could heal any illness. Because of how common this belief was, brothels in the 19th century advertised that they had young and crippled virgins available for paying clients. While it was previously mentioned that stories of virgin martyrs in early Christian history may have served as the inspiration for virgin cure myths, some academics thought the traditions came from the uninformed observation of STD symptom stages. It was suspected that one of the ladies may have been a virgin because the symptoms, such as sores, blisters, or discharges, would finally go away after multiple acts of sexual activity with various women. Therefore, having sex with a virgin was the solution for an uneducated individual. Therefore, having sex with a virgin was the solution for an uneducated individual.
Fair
That's it for
share of
today.
monastic scandals,
If you enjoyed this
despite its
video,
demands
please
for
like
virtue
and
and
subscribe to
celibacy.
our channel.
However,